to understand St. John Chrysostom properly, and especially why he's called the golden-mouthed orator, we have to understand just how gray the world was before electricity, right? Just think, not only would the world shut down in the darkness, but you didn't have nice neon signs, you didn't have lighted signs, you didn't have the ability with technology to create huge painted signs that would stay colored. The modern world is a very colorful world, but before the world was very gray. They say this is why Shakespeare's plays and plays like his, the festivals that he participated in, were so popular, because people came out of their gray, brown worlds and would see people in costumes, and they'd hear language. This is why someone like St. John Chrysostom was so valued. He was such an astonishing speaker that people would come out of their gray world, and he would create worlds out of words. And sometimes the best thing of his homilies are the little side comments that he works in, where he kind of gives a zinger to the community. So he'll say things like, you all came to hear the sermon, and then you're all leaving, and none of you stay for the best part, which is the communion, right? They just came because he was such a great preacher. They'd hear him speak, and then they'd go out and just leave and go have a nice Sunday off, right? But he was that great a speaker that even people who weren't particularly pious would come and hear him talk, right? All of the church fathers, St. Basil the Great was offered the chair of teaching of rhetoric in his town as well. They were all great orators, which was the height of education, right? But when we wonder why his oratory was so significant, why it matters, not just glad that he was a great speaker, but because he was a proclaimer of the gospel. And this gets to the height of his art, right? We see it when you go to like monasteries, or especially Mount Athos, and you see all these beautiful manuscripts and all these beautiful icons, and you hear all this wonderful chanting. Those people aren't there because they're musicians and they just want to dedicate themselves to music, right? They're not just artists who like to paint. They are completely and thoroughly dedicated to Christ. And every gift they have, they give to Christ. And if they have a gift for art, for painting, it comes in their iconography. And for music, it comes out in their music. This is St. John Chrysostom's secret, so to speak, right? He's such a beautiful and brilliant preacher because he loves God. He even says this. He says, I understand Paul so well, and I'm such a great expositor of his letters because I love him more than anyone else. Right? This is what he says. Let's keep this in mind whenever we imagine that in the Orthodox Church we don't read the Bible. Right? I say it a lot. I haven't done a lot to help you do it. That will change soon. But you really can't be Orthodox without being dedicated to the Scriptures. It's an essential element of our faith. It's so essential that you can kind of cheat, because our services are just permeated with Scriptures. Not just that we read them, but that the prayers, the hymns, everything is scriptural. You're hearing Scripture whether you want to or not, right? Whether you think you should or not. But this is really an essential and critical element of our faith. And this is one of the things where I said St. John Chrysostom often zings his community. He'll say to them, you love the chariot races, right? You love them, and you know all the names of the great horses and all the names of the great riders. But if I asked you to name the letters of St. Paul, you couldn't do it. You couldn't even tell me how many there are, right? He says this again, not because it's nice to know the letters of Paul, not because it's nice to be people of Scripture, but because our salvation depends on knowing who our God is and who we are. So when we honor St. John Chrysostom, let's not just honor him with hymns or by going to church on his name day or by being glad he was a church father. Let's imitate his example and try more and more to be people of Scripture and people who love God so much that all of our talents come forth in his glory and to further his work. God be with you all. Please come forward for Andileron.